Hello, today we're going to solve one-step equations and we're going to review all four operations. So this is a review. The goal in solving equations algebraically is to isolate the variable on one side of the equal sign and numbers on the other side. The process of doing this requires us to use the inverse, also known as the opposite operation. Undoing addition and subtraction to zero out the constant. So we're trying to undo that to zero out. And then undoing multiplication division to get a coefficient of 1. Both of them involve the identity property. So let's start in this column because this was the type of equation we solved in our last lesson. So let's read what it says. For the equation below, the variable x is being blank by 5. What's happening? X is being divided by 5. So let's write that. So we must do what by 5? What do you think? If you said multiply, you're correct. So we must multiply by 5 in order for us to isolate the variable. So we're going to build our wall. And then if you'll recall, x divided by 5, we're going to use multiplication. And there's several ways you can do this. I'm going to show the fraction way. I can multiply by 5, which is 5 over 1, and in fraction form. Since this looks like a fraction, we can make this in fraction form. And on the other side, since it doesn't look like a fraction, I'm going to multiply by 5 also on this side. So as long as I'm doing the same thing on both sides, it's okay. That's how we solve problems. We have to multiply on both sides, and we want this 5 to go away, so we're multiplying by 5. What will happen now is when we multiply straight across, the numerator times the numerator, we're going to get 5x, and the denominator times the denominator, we'll get 5. And on the other side, 7 times 5 is 35. And if we use it in fraction form, we just have one more step. 5 divided by 5 is 1, and 1 times x is x. And we already know that the other side is 35. So let's look at one other problem that's similar to this. Would you go to the back page? This problem is very similar. So we need to do what in order to solve it? If you said we need to multiply by -4, you're correct. So I'm going to multiply by -4, and this time I'm just going to show it a different way. I'm going to put -4 next to the variable. Side by side means multiply, and I'm going to put -4 next to the 7. When we put numbers and variables side by side, it means that we're multiplying. I'm just not showing the sign. And this is kind of the shortcut way. Instead of using a fraction, -4 divided by -4, a negative divided by negative. If Margar's all the way asleep, she's happy. So this becomes +1, and +1 times y is just y. On the other side, I need a +7 times a -4, and when Margar is half awake, she's mad. So this should be -28. So please pause the video and solve this on your own, and then choose the answer you think is correct when you're done. So hopefully that you multiplied by -2 on both sides, either fraction form or shortcut way. We should have gotten m because these cancel out, becoming 1, and this is a negative times a negative, so I'm going to get a positive. When Margar's all the way asleep, she's positive. We're going to get a +12. Let's look at the last equation in this column. And if you're uncomfortable solving this as is, you can move what's on this side and you can switch sides. When you're done, choose the best answer. All right, I'm going to solve this as written. And when we do, we always start on the side that has the variable. That tells us what we're going to do. And we are going to multiply by 3. I'm going to multiply by 3 because I want 3. If I'm dividing by 3, the opposite is to multiply by 3. And I'm going to multiply by 3 on this side. As long as I'm doing the same thing, we're in great shape. 3 times negative 10 is negative 30. And then these cancel out or become 1, dropping down x. If you wrote your solution as x equals negative 30, that's fine too. Let's go to the front side in the first column. Here's the equation we're working with this time. For the equation below, the variable x is being multiplied by 3. So let's write multiplied. So we must what by 3? If you said divide, you're correct. We must divide by 3. So we're going to build our wall. The opposite of multiplying by 3 is to divide by 3. So we're going to divide by 3 on this side. We're going to divide by 3 on this side. Remember, this fraction bar is the high school way to write division. Wonderful thing here is 3 divided by 3 is 1. And the identity property says 1 times anything. Is that anything? In this case, it's x. And on this side, 27 divided by 3 is 9. So that's our solution. Please turn to the back page in the first column. Let's recall when we're given a negative and we have to multiply or divide, we want to multiply or divide by that same negative, because a negative divided by a negative is a positive, and we want a positive y. So we're going to choose to solve this same way we did the front. It's just that we need to divide by negative 6. A negative divided by a negative is a positive, and we do the same thing on this side. What's the solution to this equation? Well, a positive divided by a negative is a negative. So if you said y equals negative 3, you're correct. Would you please solve this third equation and choose the best answer? If you chose positive 6, you're correct. A negative divided by a negative is a positive, and 30 divided by 5 is 6. At any time, by the way, you can use your calculator. Would you please solve the final equation? Once again, if you don't like how it's written, you can move this to this side and this to this side. Please solve and choose the best answer. Whether you chose to rearrange it or not, we always start on the side with the variable. So if we leave it like this, we have to still start on this side and divide by 9. I'm dividing both sides by 9. This side is a negative 72 and divided by a positive 9. The answer is negative 8. And these 9s eliminate each other, becoming 1. 1 times a is a. So the answer is negative 8 equals a, or a equals negative 8. Let's go to our third column on the front now. So let's look at the equation that we're given in the third column. So here's the variable. Look at what's being done. For the equation below, 6 is being added to the variable. So we want to write added. So we must do what with 6? If you said subtract 6, you're correct. That's the opposite operation. So we're going to build the wall. We're going to take away 6. Again, if you want to look at this as a positive 6 and a negative 6, that's fine. Whatever I do on one side, I must do on the other side. This zeroes out. And x plus 0 is x. That's the identity property. And 17 minus 6 is 11. Okay? If you don't like to put this 0, you can also just cross those off. Sometimes we say cancel that. Would you go to the back side, please, in the third column? Please solve this equation and choose the best answer. I would suggest using your calculator. Okay, our solving step is to subtract 6 since we're giving addition. So these cancel out, leaving a. And now here's where the tricky part is. You can put negative 13 minus 6 in your calculator. Always has to be top to bottom. Or you can look at this like it's a negative 13, and we're combining it with a negative 6. And so your answer should be negative 19. Okay, I'd like you to look at the third problem momentarily. This third equation, we haven't dealt with this type of equation. This is a challenge, and we'll talk about it at the very end of the video. I would like you to try to solve this. Once again, if you're uncomfortable, move everything on the right side over to the left, everything on the left over to the right. Please choose the best answer after you solve it. I'm going to choose to solve it as is, just so you know it's possible to do this. I'm going to start on the right side because that's where the variable is. That tells me what I need to do. So because I see that 9 is being added to the variable, I'm going to subtract 9 on both sides. So on the left side, 23 minus 9 is 14. And my variable is left on the right side. So 14 equals y, or y equals 14. So now let's go to our final column on the front. So here's the equation they're giving us. For the equation below, 8 is being blank from the variable x. So 8 is being subtracted from the variable. So we must add 8. So we're going to build our wall. The opposite of subtracting 8 is to add 8. To balance the equation, we must show it on both sides. So you can look at this like a negative 8 and a positive 8 if you prefer. And so it becomes 0 or cancels out, whichever way you prefer to look at it, leaving x, our variable, on that side. And then 17 plus 8 is 25. Our solution is x equals 25. So for the last time, let's turn to the back and look at the last column. Our equation is a minus 7 equals negative 15. Please solve this, and when you're done, choose the best answer. All right, if you solved it by adding 7, that's wonderful. So I have a on this side, and on the other side, negative 15 plus 7 equals negative 8. So if you want to use your calculator, that might be helpful. You're going to notice this problem, and this is a very challenging problem. We haven't done one like this, so we're going to skip it and come back at the end of the video. So let's move on to the last problem in this column. So you probably know what I'm going to say. You can rearrange this problem if you'd like. Would you please solve it and write the best, or choose the best answer? I'm going to leave it as is once again, and I'm going to start on the side with the variables. That's what tells me what to do. And I see minus 11, so I'm going to add 11 to both sides. And negative 47 plus 11 would give a negative 36 on this side. And on the other side, I have a. So the solution is negative 36 equals a. Now let's briefly go back to that more difficult problem right above. Oh boy, just looking at this problem, it looks complicated. So here's something wonderful we can do to keep it from being so complicated. Whenever we see those double signs, we don't like to see double signs because they're confusing, and now we're trying to solve. I'm not sure what to do because I have these double signs. So we're going to use our keep, change that we used at the beginning of the year. I'm going to keep the n. I'm going to change the minus to a plus, and then I'm going to change the negative 7 to positive 7. And now I think you're going to be able to solve this. What solving step do we need to do now that you see it written this way? If you said to subtract, you're exactly right. We need to subtract 7 on both sides. and we have n equals 22. Would you scoot over to the third column and look at our final problem? As I look at this problem, once again I have double signs. And we could solve this as is, but it's confusing what I need to do. So another way we could solve this is to use our keep, change, change again. We don't normally use keep, change, change when we see addition, but when we have double signs, this is going to help us remove confusion or help us with confusion. I'm going to keep W. I'm going to change that plus to a minus, and this negative 8 changes to a positive 8. The other side stays the same. The reason we can do this, these two equations are equivalent. They mean the same thing. When I add negative 8, that's a loss of 8. It moves us down the number line. If I subtract 8, that's also a loss of 8. It moves us down the number line. So both of these equations mean the same thing. What is a solving step, now that you see it written this way, that you need to do? If you said that we should add 8, you are correct. So I'm going to add 8 to both sides, and the final answer is W equals 19. Thanks for watching, and have a great day.